Hello, and welcome to your NARSA weekly update for the week commencing Monday, the 11th of August 2025. It's Gary here again. Thanks very much, as always, for taking the time to tune in. You know what, folks? This roller coaster of Rangers Football Club just continues. I was saying to a pal on the weekend there, I don't remember it being quite as roller coastery as this. Quite as much roller coaster vibes as we've been getting, specifically between Europe and between the domestic games that we've been playing. And I don't like it. It's not good for us. It's not healthy, and it doesn't create a bond. It doesn't create momentum, and it doesn't create a bond between us and the team because we just don't know who's going to be showing up, regardless of what the lineup is. And I'll tell you one thing right now: if Russell Martin continues like this, you're going to get sacked. Russell, it's as simple as that. Now, I don't think we're anywhere near that yet after 2 games of the domestic season, but you have to be honest and say the 2 games have been absolutely honking. Quite frankly, haven't they? I mean, they haven't been inspiring whatsoever. And as I mentioned last week, we don't have time at all for this because that mob in the East End, they don't lose that many games. They don't lose the points that we lose. That's really what I'm trying to say. And while we're now most likely going to go in, not to wish games away, but we're going to go in to the Old Firm game towards the end of this month here, and we're going to be behind. And that's the way it's always been for years and years and years. I mentioned before on the podcast where we've brought up a generation of Rangers fans who are used to this and who just they don't get it the same as we do if we are of the vintage that enjoyed the success in the 90s and beyond, and it's just not good enough. And Russell Martin, so here's my challenge. Russell Martin said at the beginning, I know the size of this football club. I've played for this football club. I watched a lot of games once I knew that I was in the running or it looked like it was going to be likely that I was going to get this role. And I know exactly what type and style of football is going to work here. I know what areas of improvement are required. And then he also said, and the key for me that I really liked, and I commented on this, was we need to win as we're building. And I'm like, okay, so we're going to build this kind of concoction of a team that's not going to look like the end product, but it's going to give us success in the short term and move us closer to the end product. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen that at all. And now, to put a positive slant on it, because I'm going to try and do that. Obviously, I'm just talking domestically, I'm not in Europe. I'll get to the game segment in a wee while, but we haven't been beat. And by the way, previous Rangers teams under those types and styles of conditions, as in the performances that we were putting in, they would have been beat by Motherwell and Dundee. So there's something to be said for that. Obviously losing the 2 points in Motherwell when we were in a leading position right up to the 87th minute is a sickener. The Dundee one was just bad from the beginning, just not good enough from the beginning. It was okay in bits and fits and starts and such. So to not have been beat and to have picked up 2 points is almost, imagine even saying that, talking about Motherwell and Dundee, and even saying that, it's just absolutely nowhere near good enough whatsoever. And here's the kicker: I didn't actually see both games live, so I had to rewatch them at the end. The European one was great. I didn't have any issue about watching that one afterwards, and the Dundee one, knowing what the score was and knowing how it ended up, obviously a bit of drama at the end, it's difficult. It's difficult to give yourself that opportunity to put yourself up, and know what's coming and try and watch it. Not that you're waiting for my analysis every single week. I know you're not, but it's nice to hear a different perspective now and again. And it's nice for me to immerse myself in the game in a different vein, where I'm watching it with a view to actually trying to critique it and to comment on it afterwards. But, we've scored 2 goals in 2 domestic games, and the 2 goals have came from the guy who apparently is the epitome of our losing mentality. and Rangers, and if it wasn't for him, we'd have lost both games. So, be careful what you wish for. And I don't know if he is that epitome. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have been in the position that we are in right now. So What we're not doing is we're not threatening it enough from open play. You can see that now because it's the 2 goals we've scored have been from 2 set plays, and one a penalty and one directly from a corner there. So we're not creating enough from open play, which I did talk about last week, and we're giving up way too many chances. We're actually too easy to play against, and I'll get to that when we get to the game segment here in a wee bit. But dearie me, it just feels so early on. It's bleak, and this is interesting. I was talking about this on another podcast earlier today, and I'll get to that a wee bit later in the communication section, is that we're actually very easy to play against now, and if we continue to do that, and if we continue to be that, then we're going to get what we get. If nothing changes, nothing changes, and nothing has changed thus far certainly in terms of the results and the performances. They're kind of boring. If we're not creating chances, that's boring. If we're not, defending with every last ounce of energy we've got, that's kind of boring. So it's kind of like nothing's happening right now. I know it's early days, but we don't have time for early days at this football club. If he watched the amount of games that he said he was watching, he would know about the 10 men behind the ball, this low block, and the ability to be able to how to act and react when you get doubled up on your wingers and such like that. A whole bunch of technical stuff that I don't really know about. But he doesn't seem to have figured that out yet. And it's way, way below the standard that we need. Nobody's frightened at all. I mean, that's one away and one at home. Dundee and Motherwell, come on. But are we looking here, quite honestly, folks, are we looking here at another successful European campaign that gives us some highs and something to look at, and a turgid domestic campaign? Short answer right now is yes, of course it is. That's exactly the way that it's shaping up. I want to flip the script on that, and not saying do a Man United who have no Europe at all to look forward to, and they're just going to rebuild a squad and try and do what they can do domestically. But let's compete in Europe, but let's make the absolute bread and butter our domestic form. But there just seems to be this inherent, what would you say, will or motivation within this squad that when the fans are up and the atmosphere's good, then everything's all great. They can do what they need to do in Europe, and domestically they have no conditioning to be able to create motivational conditions for themselves to be able to actually go and deliver. So anyway, well, you know what? I kind of spoiled the surprise a wee bit there. But I was on the Heart and Hand flagship show this morning with my good friend David Edgar and my equally good friend David Graham, former communication director at Rangers. So it was great to chat to the guys. It's not any more upbeat than this podcast, to be honest, because we're talking specifically about the Dundee game with very, very casual reference to the Pilsen first leg. And what we're saying is nowhere good enough, and we're all bringing our own thoughts and feelings on that. So if you're subscribed to the Heart and Hand Network, please go to check that out. It was a great to chat to the guys as always, but I wish it was under better conditions. So let's get on to the game segment here. And the first one started with that brilliant 3-1 win at Ibrox against Victoria Pilsen, and that was just much more like it. It was brilliant from the absolute first minute to the last. I know Russell Martin kind of commented a wee bit in terms of the team dipping a wee bit at the end, and we could have maybe kept the intensity up, but it was terrific. I mean, they had their chances as well, of course, but we clean sheet 3-0. That's a great result, and it wasn't without its controversy at the beginning. The big news was after he lit a rocket under certain players after the Motherwell game the week before, or the weekend before, he dropped players, and the 2 that were dropped that were kind of surprising. Certainly one of them for sure was Captain James Tavernier and Nico Raskin. And, the surprise from a Tavernier perspective is he seemed to be undroppable for the longest time, didn't he? And now he's kind of not, because it was the same again on the weekend. It was the same lineup, in fact, actually against Dundee. And Nico Raskin, if it was for the petulant arms up in the air stuff and all that, he's a young kid. He's a young boy. Yeah, he should know better. But, I mean, at least he cares. At least he's trying to do something. Maybe that comes with complaining or not doing something else or whatever. I'm not exactly sure how it all transpires on the pitch. We can't hear any of that sort of stuff, of course. But a wee bit surprising Nico was dropped. But, yeah, I mean, we're in a different situation. The European games are really entertaining, whether it's home or away. And this one was no different, with a brilliant opening goal, a brilliant ball from Dessers to Gassama to put a fantastic finish in. Ended the first half in superb fashion, getting the penalty there. And, And actually, you know what? From at the end, after just straight after their first goal, one of the key things was they had a chance right after that, and Giga had a superbly important block putting his body on the line for the team and kept it at 1-0 at that point. Then we go to half time and then we get the penalty just before it. Dessers puts it away expertly well. We're all enthusiastic. We get into early part of the second half and put the game away. But we had one cleared off the line from Antman as well. So it was one of these things. And I've practiced Antman because it was Ant-Man the whole week. Ant-Man for me, it's just easier to say Ant-Man. But I'm going to try and get away from the Marvel character and just say Ant-Man, and hopefully we'll get that habit going there. And that was brilliantly cleared off the line, actually superbly cleared off the line. I thought initially it hit the Rangers player, to be honest. But then, second half, we get the second goal for Gassama, and then we're flying. We're just absolutely flying. Could have scored more. They had chances. Again, that seems to be the makeup of this particular team right now, where we're giving up chances, almost equal to, sometimes more, than we are actually creating for ourselves. In fact, that actually is more than we're creating for ourselves right now. But hopefully that will settle itself out over time. Seen the game out, did really, really well. The positives, any 3-0 victory, actually any 3-0 victory in any competition right now would be great for us, but any 3-0 victory in Europe, of course, is great, especially in a Champions League third round qualifier. So that was one that I imagine other people would be kind of raising an eyebrow at, to say, oh, that's a bigger score. You don't really see scores like that at this age and stage of the competition. So that was great. We're in a fantastic position to go through in the competition now, of course, which is great, which is fiscally brilliant for us. £5 million, €5 million. I'm not exactly sure if it's pounds or euros that we get if we get through to the knockout stages, even if we don't make it. And of course, you do know that we've already secured Europa League football as a parachute if the Champions League doesn't work out for us. So really, really good. Gassama is a class act. That was a masterclass by that boy. He's been a real shining light for us in terms of the start of the season, both domestically and in Europe, winning the penalty for us in the Dundee game, which I'll get to here just in a wee second. And it was a brilliant debut for Antman, wasn't it? To contribute as he did, almost score, be involved in a penalty for Dessers to put away. You can't get much better than that. And one of these, he joins just before we actually get to play him, and then he's in great shape to come on, and just probably the adrenaline, I imagine, kept him through there, and it was great. The negatives, being a wee bit greedy, not scoring more, and really like 4 puts it beyond a doubt. We're not coming up against these freak results that Barcelona or Liverpool or whatever have had over the years, where we would be able to see out a 4-0 victory. 3-0, you're just kind of like, oof. If they get an early one the first 10, 15 minutes, then you're kind of like, all right, okay, who knows. But I'm not going to get greedy. 3-0, as I say, is a great result, so we'll take that. In terms of the stats, it says, actually the Rangers website didn't have anything on there, so I had to go back to live score. So it said that we had 56% possession, 6 shots on goal with 5 on target. That's a good return. 3 of them being converted, so that's over 50%. Of course, that's 60% or so, versus their 12 shots on goal with only 2 on target. So there you go. We had 6 and they had 12. They had double the amount of shots, but less than half the amount on target. So let's keep an eye on that as we go forward and see what that looks like. In the referee watch, I don't recall him being overly annoying with anything that I've seen. The penalty, kind of soft, but felt it was a penalty, so we'll take that. So 7 out of 10 he gets. He didn't do anything spectacular or remarkable there. The second one I've kind of alluded to it a wee bit, certainly in the intro there, was the 1-1 draw at home to Dundee. I was at Leo's rugby match, so I didn't get a chance to see it. And wow, it was just awful, wasn't it? It was like beyond woeful. And it was almost like a performance that you see at the end of a manager's reign. When the team are like, the fans are down, we're down. There's an atmosphere around the club, everything is just a little bit less than it should be. And that's what it felt like. We don't have this new manager bounce. I think that's actually what I was trying to allude to earlier today. We had the new manager bounce with Gio, we had it with Micheal Beale, we had it with Philippe Clement, and we haven't had it, certainly domestically anyway, we haven't had that with Russell Martin. Now, what I said on the Heart and Hand podcast earlier was, maybe we flip the script, because we've seen that story of having the early manager bounce and it doesn't come to anything materially beneficial for us as a club in terms of actually genuinely competing for trophies domestically. So do we take this short-term pain for longer-term gain? I would take that. But right now it doesn't feel so great. Russell, you said you were going to win, or you said you knew we had to win, and it didn't look like you put out your best team. And then afterwards he's lamenting about the fact that, oh, maybe I could have made a sub to increase the energy. Of course you could have. Of course you should have. If you've got the subs there, make the subs and give us that opportunity. Then you don't have to lament that afterwards. Certainly don't lament that publicly. But as I've said, it was kind of boring. We're boring to watch right now as we figure out what we're doing. Dundee hit the post in 30 minutes. I mean, they were the guys that were threatening, truly, and then a few minutes later they hit the post again, although that one was offside. Both of them from set pieces, folks. Both of them from set pieces. How long have we been saying we can't defend set pieces that well? Forever. It feels like, certainly the last 10 years or so, and we're in the exact same boat. So we're talking about Mendy coming in. At the time of recording right now, it's 12:19 p.m. my time, and I haven't heard anything concrete that he's actually signed. So, we obviously need to do something better from a set-piece perspective. Our first serious shot was just before half-time, like 41, 42 minutes, something like that, maybe 43 minutes. That's not good enough. We had a Robin Proper. We had a proper shot, and Robin Proper doesn't live with us anymore. And we had a proper shot in about 50 minutes, and then they scored right after. A goal that I thought was offside, unless the guy who was offside it's this first phase, second phase, or first tier, second tier of the play or whatever it was, but the guy was offside. And here's the thing, the ball goes into our box and there's not one, but there's two headers, unchallenged, and the second one loops over Jack Butland's head into the net, and that doesn't look good at all. It's not even like a fluke, like one of these cross-come shots or anything like that. The boy loops it in from it seemed to be like the edge of the 6-yard box there, and he's got the goal, and then we've got Kieran Dowell being booed on. I literally absolutely hate that. I hate that. As soon as the person pulls on the blue jersey, boo the substitution. Yeah, I get that, but booing the player, come on. And then Russell Martin doesn't do any favours afterwards by saying, I'm not on social media, so I don't really know what the play is here with Kieran Dowell. He does well for us. He's been playing out of position. He played in position. He played relatively well. I actually thought he did play relatively well when he came on. And then we've got Jigga sent off for basically doing the exact same to the Dundee attacker as the Dundee attacker did to him. The two of them kind of slapped at each other a wee bit, didn't they? And then the Dundee player is savvy enough to go down. And then he's the last man, and then Don Robertson couldn't get his red card out quick enough. The thing for me was that he just didn't complain, he didn't protest, he just accepted it, like almost literally walked off straight away, as if I knew that was going to happen. Make a case to say, look, he did it to me, I did it. He's far enough away. We've got defenders coming in. We're going to get ourselves into that position where we're going to be in better shape here. It should be yellow, not a red. But no, just walked off. Nobody else seemed to crowd the referee, certainly not in the RTV view that I had anyway. So, all right, I guess that's a thing to do. And then the last 30 minutes or so was just like the last 10 years or so, wasn't it? It's just hopeful ball, thrown in. I don't know that we won any of them, to be honest. We got the offside goal at the end there, but other than that, these high speculative balls into the area, that's just tailor-made for a team like Dundee with a big brutes at the back and such. Not a lot of creativity until we have some creativity. Then we get a penalty from the creativity, and then you get the penalty. Is that not a red card? Because he's bearing in mind the goals that he's scored already in Europe for us. That's a shooting opportunity, a genuine, clear goal scoring opportunity for someone of his class and his style, in fact. And no red card there. It takes a wee while to get the penalty. We get the penalty. Still got a wee bit of time after that, and then Dessers, he's leading the line. It's a brilliant turn and a brilliant finish to get what we thought was the winner. And then you can see he's clearly offside. I'm not complaining about the offside. He's leading the line. He has to see that. And I get in the moment of the game, you're looking at the play and such, but you need to be looking at two things. You need to be looking at how the play is developing to come up to you, and you need to be looking at where you're actually situated on the field so that you can then give yourself an opportunity to say, I need to come on side. And then if the ball comes through and you miss it, folks will know what you were doing. You had to get yourself back on side. But nope, didn't get it. So we get a point, and then we'll move on from there. Last week I was like, oh, you never know how valuable that Motherwell point might be at the end of the season. I can't say that for 2 games in a row. These are 4 points dropped, and not dropped because we didn't deserve them to be dropped. We've dropped them. They're gone. They're history, and we're never going to get them back, and we don't deserve to have those extra 4 points anyway. So the positives, I say all that. I mean, we never got beat, so that's one thing. We're unbeaten at the start of the season. He said, clutching at straws. 2 goals in 2 games for James Tavernier is a good return. He didn't score a lot of goals last season in comparison to previous seasons, so hopefully that's good for him. And genuinely, to be fair to the team, plugging away and getting a point after playing rotten for almost the entire game is good, and you can see the impact that Gassama has. He is an impact player. He's got energy, he's got creativity, he's got invention. Once he really gets up to speed, he'll score a lot of goals, he'll create a lot of goals for us, and if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have got the penalty. So fair play to him. In terms of the negatives, the whole entire performance was just way below standards that we would expect from a Rangers team, in transition or not. And that's how I feel about that. We're just easy to play against. As I mentioned earlier, from a negative perspective, Butland for their goal, getting lobbed on the line, I don't know. And you could see when we're playing out from the back, Dundee aren't a great side, but they can see what we're trying to do. So they can combat against that. When John Souttar comes out and he makes the pass, they're ready for the pass. If you watch that again, if you watch the replays or highlights again, and then they put the quick through ball. John Souttar's out of position at this point. The quick through ball, it catches Jigga out of position, and then they have a wee kind of arm slap fest, and then the boy goes down and he gets a red card. That's all from our ability to be easy to play against. Not very good English, I know, but we're getting these warning signs early in the season, so hopefully that bodes well for Russell Martin and his team to be able to try and actually figure out what that looks like and see. And for me, honestly, the complete change in intensity and effort and desire from the same team, by the way, from Tuesday night to Saturday afternoon, just not good enough. Not good enough at all. And we already have a sizable gap that's more than 1 game. In 2 games against Motherwell and Dundee at the top, that's a mess. In terms of possession, apparently 76% possession, 14 shots on goal with 5 on target, versus four shots on goal with 2 on target. And I don't know. So the possession's in our favour, the chances is in our favour, yet we scrape a point at the end with an injury time penalty. Something not right here. Maybe I'll look back on this. I hope I do very, very, very quickly and say it was teething troubles. We've got it now, and we're ready to go. I've seen a lot more than just people being confused about what they've been asked to do. I could almost see that for the original players, the players that have been there for quite some time, but we're signing new players that are there to fit in to that system. So already they've seen enough about them, whether they've worked with them or not, to say, yes, they will fit into this system. So coaching, I don't know if it's coaching at this particular time. On the referee watch, Don Robertson, as I say, couldn't get his red card out quick enough. I can see why it'd be given. I would be wanting it given at the other side, but when you see the replay, you see how far out it is. Maybe, I don't know. I thought it was kind of soft-ish of a red card, and no red for theirs. That means he gets a 6 out of 10. It wasn't terrible the whole day, but he could have called theirs a red as well. In terms of our next games, of course, we have the Victoria Pilsen away game. That's tomorrow, Tuesday, the 12th of August, with a 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time kickoff. That's 6 p.m. in the UK, nice and early, so that's 11 a.m. for me. Looking forward to that one. I've already got it scheduled. I'm not going to be watching it on replay tomorrow because my calendar is properly blocked. Do you know what happens? I've got the Rangers updates, the Rangers calendar updates, and it puts the calendar invite in my calendar, but it doesn't block it. It doesn't block it as like a meeting or something like that. So other people are like, we'll just take Gary's time here. And I'm like, so last week I was recording podcasts for my business, so I didn't get a chance to see the second half of the game live. I had to watch that afterwards. And the second game is Alloa at home. Now, I mentioned earlier that Russell Martin is not in any danger right now. We're only 2 games into the domestic season. I don't think we have time. I don't think it's good enough, and it doesn't bode well, but I'm open to having my mind changed on that. If we got beat at home by Alloa on the weekend, then he has to go. that, we learned that lesson from the Queen's Park game at Ibrox in the Scottish Cup last season. He would have to go. And I don't think he will, to be honest. But if we have a result like that in the League Cup, which is, becoming a bit of an opportunity for us to win silverware this early in the season, I don't want to count it all out right now. But I just don't like what I see. Then obviously that's a trouble. But we're at home to Alloa in the League Cup on the 16th of August. That's a 12:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time kickoff. 5:45 UK, same as the Dundee game there last week, and hopefully we'll get a better result than we got there. Now, should Rangers be successful in the Champions League third qualifying round, it's looking very, very likely we're going to face either Salzburg or Club Brugge. Looking more likely to be Club Brugge. They had a good result away from home there, and then the games would be scheduled to be played the midweeks of the 19th or 20th of August, and 26th, 27th, so basically the next again week here. So it's coming thick and fast, and I don't have any fear for both of those teams actually, so it will be good to see, and it would be great to get into the Champions League for the money more than anything else. But we won't have as bad of a campaign. I mean, that was a terrible group we had. We had Ajax, we had Liverpool, we had Napoli, three brilliant sides who went on to do some good things in the competition that year. So, but for us to statistically be the worst in the Champions League team doesn't feel that great, to be perfectly honest. But I would love to be in the Champions League. I really would. So hopefully that's the way that it transpires for us. In terms of RTV, the coverage was good this week. I did actually contact David Melvin, and I'll get Dan, the Bransfield, our new RTV director, on the case for this one, because even up to yesterday, Saturday, I was looking for the Victoria Pilsen games, and they weren't on. They went on replay on the Rangers TV website. I managed to find them, but they weren't actually accessible. Videos coming soon or something like that. So they're supposed to be available from midnight onwards. I mean, the live was actually fine, but the replay, not so much on that. And we are finalising the RTV surveys. I know there were two delinquent clubs. One of them got back to us today, and I don't know where we're sitting with the other delinquent club, but hopefully we have that organised, and then we'll be in good shape to see what the gap is between what Rangers TV are looking for us from a revenue perspective, and see how we can try and bridge that gap, because there's going to be a gap, absolutely. And we'll get Dan Bransfield on the pod here some point over the next wee while to have a bit of a blather with him and his motivations for running for office and what he's hoping to do in the role as well. Shout outs. I'm going to start with a really good one. Our social media guru, or gonk as I like to call them, Connor Gunn, got himself married at the weekend. So they had a gender reveal last week. I actually don't know what the gender reveal was. Now, Connor's actually told me before. I believe I know, but I'm not going to say anything. It's his news to share, not mine. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. But I can't remember off the top of my head if he actually told me what the gender was. I've got a feeling he did, so forgive me, Connor, if that's actually the case. But they had a gender reveal last week, and they had their wedding on the weekend there. I did ask him how it went, but he was busy weddinging, so I didn't actually get any details or anything like that. Very surprised I didn't get an invite to be best man for that, quite honestly. I'll talk to Connor privately about that. I don't want to extend any sort of pressure on a public forum or anything like that. I wouldn't do that. But yeah, quite disappointing that he didn't ask me to be. Even an invite would be nice. I'm not going to go, but come in, just do one of those superficial things. But congratulations, Connor. He's been a revelation in our social media stuff, and him and Colin have got some great ideas about what we're going to actually do in the future as we move forward too. So I'm really, really looking forward to what that looks like for us as well. Good for you. Good for you. I do want to actually extend a personal thank you to one of the Rangers supporters, Club of Calgary members, Gareth Lipka, who also works for Apple. That's actually his day job. It's not being a member of the Rangers Supporters Club of Calgary. And I did a reboot of my MacBook last night just to make sure that it was all good and proper for this morning's flagship recording. And I lost a couple of files that I should have had access to. There seems to be a glitch with uploading from last night to today. And one of them was my notes that I have as a spreadsheet that I keep for my notes that I gathered through the week for the NARSA weekly update. And this morning I'm like, oh, they're all gone. And I'd written some stuff out about the stats from the games and such like that, and it's just wasted effort if I couldn't find the file. But it gave me a path to go and find the file, found the file, saved it again as is, because I keep one local and I keep one online. I do all the right things. I'm not a complete dunce in that respect, and it still didn't work out my way. So Gareth, talked me down off the proverbial ledge as it was, and I got what I needed for that. The other one was my coaching files, like my actual genuine master coaching files for all my clients that I have and have had in the past. So I kind of need that one as well. So we're all in good shape there. Right, remember last week I talked about a young man from Orange County in California called Andrew Campbell, who's a member of the Orange County Rangers Supporters Club and the son of Genevieve and Graham Campbell and the nephew of Brian Campbell, of course. So he qualified for the Great British team for the under-23 Euros, which were being held in mainland Europe, and they went and won it. They went and won the entire tournament, and they had some very close games, some very exciting games. That the whole Campbell clan were there in Prague for the games, and they beat the Czech Republic or Czechia, or forgive me what their name is, in the final, in a close final. Actually, I think it was 9-7 it ended up, something like that. But they went and won the whole tournament by qualifying even just for the final, which was on Saturday there. They automatically qualified for the World Championships, which are being held, I believe, next year in Nicaragua as well. So there's going to be a Campbell clan going to Nicaragua once they find out where that is as they go forward. But here's the best part of it. He is also now been called up and is in a provisional 40 squad, a squad of 40, I should say, for the Great Britain's men's full team. And he also won pitcher of the tournament. And Graham Campbell put on the NARSA WhatsApp chat yesterday, he won player of the tournament as well. So I don't know if pitcher and player were two different awards, but it couldn't have went any better for Andrew, could it? I mean, that's two victories he's had this summer. Obviously, the most prestigious one was winning the Davy Cooper Memorial Golf Tournament in Kissimmee, Florida, at the NARSA 2025 convention. But to also do what he did for his dad's home country, I mean, that's him adopted a Brit, absolutely 100% now. He did it fantastically well. He's such a cool, calm, collected kid, and did what he had to do to prove his worth there. So he'll be getting a lot of attention now, the right type and style of attention there. So great to see some of the videos that Brian had shared on the actual victory itself, and some of the photographs and such memories, like absolute genuine lifetime memories. Hopefully this is the start of big things for Andrew as he moves forward, because that was a pretty decent return from his efforts last week there, wasn't it? Speaking of winning, Leo, I mentioned his rugby earlier. Leo's team won. Honestly, folks, it must have been about 50-0. I actually checked it before I started recording today. I don't know what the final score was, but the other team, I know for a fact, didn't score any. And the last I recorded, I think it was like 29-0 at the time. And then Leo's mum came along and was blether in my ear. I kind of lost track of that, but they played exceptionally well. Leo got a try on his own. They gave him the kick afterwards. Kind of fluffed the kick, to be honest, but the try was brilliant. A breakaway, and just off he went. And then the guys were catching up on him at the end because he was getting quite tired at the end of the run, but he managed to get it into the end zone, the try zone. Forgive me, I don't have a clue about rugby. I need to learn more about it, obviously. But he did fantastically well. So they're now in the City Championships this Saturday, 12:30 p.m. UK kickoff time. The two games that we have late kickoffs, or I guess there was three, wasn't there? 3 in a row for us. And I've got Leo's games. Leo takes priority over absolutely everything, of course. But you get to see the first half and a wee bit more of the Alloa game this weekend, and then I'll jet over to see him. He'll just make his own way there. And hopefully we're going to be celebrating a City Championship. The challenge is the week after we're heading to Mexico, and if they navigate the City Championships, they go to Provincials, the Alberta Provincial Championships, and we're going to be in Mexico that week. We booked a holiday ages ago, and rugby wasn't even, summer rugby certainly wasn't even a thing when we booked it. So it's just one of these things. It will be great, dad and son bonding time, but man, oh man, it would have been great to see them in Provincials if they get there. So it'll be interesting to see. They obviously have a game to navigate, and we'll see how that one goes. Got an email last week from a lady by the name of Amanda Ross, who wrote, in April of 2026, I will be running the London Marathon with my son. We've been selected to run for the Royal British Legion. We've committed to raising $10,000, half by the end of this year and the rest by April 2026, to help fund essential care, support and services for those who have served. What a noble cause. Absolutely brilliant, Amanda. And this is proving to be particularly difficult from the other side of the world. I don't actually know where Amanda is. I'm going to have to try and find that out. But her and her son are lacing up not just for the 26.2 miles, but for every veteran who's walked a harder path than we ever will. And she said, we would absolutely love your support, whether it's sharing the story, which I'm doing right now, or donating what you can. And their Instagram page is at Miles for Heroes, Miles for Heroes, and the fundraising page, I'll actually put that in the show notes for today's podcast as well. Absolutely brilliant for them doing that. A marathon is absolutely no mean feat. I know my brother-in-law Andy has ran 2 and done fantastically well in both of those. But the training regime, oh boy, man, that's a lot of work. I'm an avid runner. I don't know that I'll ever do a marathon. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But I've done a few halves and such. But that's hard enough. So to do that and then have the added pressure of the fundraising, it's a big deal. So congratulations, well done to them. I'll get the link in. I'll keep that in between now and April next year, and we'll see what that looks like. One last wee shout out for the Heart and Hand live show that is featuring Bomber Brown this Friday, August the 15th. Like everything, organise an event for the beginning part of the season, thinking we're going to have a really absolute top-notch start to the season, and then with that it becomes easier, to get people involved in Rangers things. And the start that we've had, certainly domestically, hasn't helped. It probably hasn't helped on ticket sales, but tickets are going fast. And if you want to see Bomber, as I mentioned last week, folks, he was absolutely brilliant in kissing me. I thought he was going to be good. I didn't for some reason didn't expect him to be quite so. It's quite so. What would it be? Brilliant. I mean, dynamite. He was just his presence in every single room that he entered was just incredible. He just had time for everyone. His stories were brilliant, and he was just an absolute joy to have there. Another shout out for the Melbourne City Loyal Culture Weekend, November 21st to 22nd. Boat cruise, party, gala dinner, lots of fun stuff. Ian Ferguson and Gary Stevens and Stuart Monroe all going to be there. I'll leave that note in there. In terms of our convention update, well, I did say to you last week that we were having an executive meeting on Tuesday night, which we had, and it was the least dramatic one that we've had in the last wee while, which is great and a sign of things to come. Thank you to Alan for setting the tone and the scene for doing that. And we did talk around the convention and what we want to do, literally asking, do we want to have one next year? If so, where would we want to go? And it was basically the first of a series of brainstorming sessions that we're going to have. Nothing concrete was decided. Bashed around some ideas, some different ideas of different types and styles of things that we might want to consider as we go forward in terms of mixing it up a wee bit, providing a wee bit of a different type and style of experience for folks and such as well. So we don't have anything absolutely planned, but what we do have is we're having these meetings bi-weekly every second Tuesday for the first couple of months until we get a groove on, Alan gets his feet really truly under the table, and then we move forward from there. So our next meeting is a week tomorrow, and then we'll see whether we come up with an actual definitive decision as to how we're going to move forward in terms of the convention. Obviously time is ticking along here, so if we're having a convention next year, we want to make it as we'll make it known as early as possible so we can get all the other parameters in play in terms of ticket sales and hotel bookings and such like that. So we'll see. More to come on that. In terms of other business, we had a bit of a kind of formal introductory meeting with Alan McWatt, our new president, and Greg Marshall, the supporters liaison officer from Rangers. And both of the guys know each other. They've met numerous times before, but not in the capacity of formal introduction to the new president. And I have to say, I kind of felt sorry for Greg a wee bit because he's had numerous meetings with people, myself included, from NARSA. This is your new executive. Actually, no, this is your new executive. Actually, I tell you what, this is absolutely for real, your new executive this time. And so we had a conversation where I've had that same conversation, so I let the guys kind of get on with it for the most part. But it's good to put faces to the names, to put the styles together and really have a conversation about what's coming up next. And what's coming up next is we're going to actually hold formal quarterly meetings with Greg and his team and key people from Rangers, depending on what it is we're doing at a specific point in time, we being NARSA, of course. So we're going to get those scheduled in the calendar. We don't have the first one yet. We banded around a date, but it's going to be in October, I believe, and then we'll have one every quarter from then on in. And we'll do it will be more action oriented than just talking. We've done a lot of talking over the years, and things just haven't really been fully set at the club to be able to say this is a genuine initiative. This is something we're taking over. This is where we need help and support from NARSA, and for us to have that same conversation with them, to be able to say this is what we're doing from their perspective at the same time. So we'll see how that one goes over the next wee while. But a great meeting. It's always good chatting to Greg, and Alan was more than prepared for the conversation as well. So really productive and good to get the ball rolling and moving on that one. In terms of communications for this week, there was a Gers guide this week. It's just whenever we can be bothered at the Rangers side, it seems to be. But we did have a Gers guide, and the main things is that today, on the Monday, of course, when I'm recording, is the Victoria Pilsen game press conference is happening today. I think a wee bit later on. Maybe it's already happened by the time of recording. It's going to be live on X or Twitter, whatever you call it, and then it will be on the Rangers YouTube website fairly quickly after that. Tomorrow, of course, is the game in Victoria Pilsen versus Rangers at the Duzan Arena, and that's a 6 p.m. UK kickoff time, as I mentioned, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Nothing listed for Wednesday or Thursday. Friday is a press conference for the Alloa game. Saturday is the Alloa game itself. And then on Sunday, the women's campaign opens. Leanne Creighton and her team is opening their campaign at Montrose on Sunday, and that's the Scottish Power Women's Premier League, and that's at Links Park with a 1 p.m. UK kickoff time there. Another wee tidbit that I saw just before I started recording that I'll put in the okay bucket was that Micheal Beale. Yes, remember that guy? Micheal Beale says that Russell Martin needs more time before we can start to actually judge them on the results. I would think after being sacked, what was that, 10 months after kind of weaseling his way into the position, that he would know better, or he would know actually that you need more time. And maybe that was a veiled, I didn't get enough time in my tenure and such, but who knows? I don't really know what that looks like. But a kind of nothing article on the Rangers, not the Rangers website, the Sky Sports website to kind of say, right, okay, fair enough if you like then, Micheal. So take that for whatever it needs to be. The Rangers Ladies Lunch is going ahead in a couple of weeks' time here, Friday, 22nd of August. So if you're interested in that, please do go along. And 5 Stars have an evening with Barry Ferguson, Alan McGregor, Neil McCann and Billy Dodds at the beginning of January. Go to the 5 Stars site there and you can get details about that. One last thing I'd like to leave you with just before we go today. Today was a wee bit ranty, that's why it's a wee bit longer. And hopefully next week it won't be anything of the same. And I won't be like, it was only Alloa, or anything like that. If we get a victory in the next 2 games, I will be absolutely delighted, and you'll get a 30-minute podcast of absolute positivity. But I watched most of the Liverpool and Crystal Palace game yesterday. How strange was it to see Giovanni Van Bronckhorst on the Liverpool bench there? It's just great to see him. He's looking good, and hopefully he has a really positive impact. When he was there, Liverpool just had an absolute nightmare in the penalties there, so that's why Crystal Palace took home the trophy. But there was a wee bit of bad behaviour for some fans when they were doing a minute's silence for Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva, so that then caused a reaction from the Liverpool fans, and the referee just cut it short, and then he just continued with an applause. Poor behaviour. It's not just in our league that we see that sort of thing, but yeah, it was good to see Gio there, but a wee bit strange, I have to say. Okay, my friends, that will do it for this week. Thank you very, very much, as always, for taking the time to tune in. Please do share it with at least one more person that you think might enjoy it. Honestly, I have no idea what's going to happen this week, and neither do you. So we'll see. We'll see how it unfolds. I said it last week. I'll say it again this week. 2 victories and nothing less, Rangers. Please, until next week, please do take care of yourself and all the very best. Okay, follow.